back to the show. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. We're going to go now to the president of the Family Council. His name's Jerry Cox. He's back with us. Jerry, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well. It's a little bit chilly, but hey, the sun is out. It's a good day.
You guys have got some great articles up at familycouncil.org, and I want to talk about a few of those. I see this one thing here where Planned Parenthood has put out a notice to try to hire a quote sexual health education intern. What do you know about that?
Well, we know some about it. We need to know more. And here's the bottom line. Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest provider of abortions, the nation's largest promoter of abortions, is in some public schools doing sex education. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you don't want the nation's largest provider of abortions teaching your 7th, 8th, 9th, 12th grader, whatever, sex education in the public schools. And, Paul, we have suspected that Planned Parenthood has been in some public schools, maybe here around Little Rock, for 30 years, almost, 20 or 30 years. Because from time to time, we hear reports about Planned Parenthood doing this or that at one of the high schools here in Little Rock. And so it's very troubling, and I think parents ought to delve into this a little bit and ask the administration at their schools, what kind of sex education, if any, do we do at the school, and who teaches it? And very specifically, are there any organizations that do abortions or promote abortions in any way connected with these programs? And I think it might be very revealing.
How does, in terms of other states, is there anything that the state could do to try to stop Planned Parenthood from trying to indoctrinate our kids in school? Are there other states that have tried to address this problem?
Let me tell you, yes, that's a great question, Paul, because when I started looking into this, I found out that our neighbors down in Texas, just this year, in fact, the law went into effect this past September, that says in Texas, no government entity that receives any kind of public funds in Texas will have any kind of connection, relationship, contract, whatever word is operable, with any organization that is a provider or a promoter of abortion. And it's very much the same language that we have used to prevent Planned Parenthood in Arkansas and elsewhere from directly receiving public funds. For example, they used to get grant money from the state here in Arkansas. And the legislature said, no, we're not going to give any grant money to anybody that does abortions or promotes them. So that door closed. And then the governor came along about a year later and said, you know what, we're not going to do Medicaid reimbursements to any organization that promotes abortions or does abortions. And that, of course, includes Planned Parenthood and any other organization that is like that. And so it would be quite easy for the state of Arkansas to simply pass a law that says, you know what, we're going to extend that same prohibition to any government agency here in the state. We don't want any tax money going to an organization that specializes in taking the lives of innocent unborn children, the way Planned Parenthood, like they and others do. And so hats off to the people in Texas for doing this. And this law down there apparently is currently being enforced. I'm not aware that it's being challenged in court. So again, it would be quite easy for it to do that. But in the meantime, a school board could issue a ruling that, you know what, in our school district, if we do sex education, we're only going to do business with these kinds of entities that do a responsible sex education program. And a school board could do that right away. And in fact, I believe there's enough leeway that a school superintendent or school principal and the teachers could just sit down and say, you know what, these are the kinds of curricula we're going to adopt.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of leeway there if people just want to do that. But I'll pause and give you a chance to ask a question. But there's another thing I want to talk about with the Department of Ed and what they're doing is troubling.
Okay, what is it? Tell us what the Department of Ed is doing.
Here's what happened during the legislative session. The Department of Education rolled out a piece of legislation that was veiled as a sex education. No, I'm sorry, a health education.
Okay, hang on one second, Jerry. We kind of have a bad connection. You just kind of... Okay, I can hear you better now, so go ahead.
Okay, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's try this again. Well, during the legislative session earlier this year, the Department of Education rolled out a bill that was supposed to be based on some new health standards that they were doing. And it had to do with, like the usual health things like eat right and exercise and those kinds of things. But kind of hidden down in that bill was some sex education requirements, and it was a mandate that all the public schools in grades 7 through 12 statewide would have to do a certain type of sex education program in all the schools. And when we got to looking at that, we said, you know what? The way they worded this, that's going to be Planned Parenthood and people like them. And it's going to require the schools to do that. And so we and other lawmakers like Representative Mark Lowry got out in front of this thing and started talking about it. And I was appalled that some of the Republicans on that committee who hold themselves out to be very conservative and pro-life and all these other things just barreled forward doing this really awful bill. And Representative Lowry from Maumelle, in fact, introduced an amendment and said, okay, well, you can pass your health education bill, but I want an amendment in here that says that you won't include any organization that does abortion or promotes them as the teacher of any of this sex ed. And you know what? That committee rejected that amendment, would not approve it. And that showed true colors, I think, on the part of a bunch of people that they were willing to go out here and embrace such an awful thing. And so we fought it really hard along with some other individuals that are around the state of Arkansas. And finally, after weeks out there fighting it, the bill died.
Wow.
But that's so troubling that I just believe that there are people inside the Department of Education who either knowingly or unknowingly are still trying to open the door for Planned Parenthood-type organizations to come in and do these programs in our schools with our children. And I might add that there's a responsible way to do mentoring and risk avoidance and all that with kids. I think they need some help in that area, but they don't need Planned Parenthood in here holding their hand and leading them down the abortion path.
Of course
That's
not.
just wrong.
Yeah, and I think everybody, I mean, the vast majority of Arkansans, should Planned Parenthood have access to our kids' public school system? Absolutely not. Should any pro-abortion organization have? No, absolutely not, because, I mean, they're promoting murder. I mean, they're promoting more of a careless lifestyle that's going to lead to pregnancy. I've seen some of the pamphlets. I mean, what they're giving to folks. It's absolutely terrible. They don't need to be in charge of our sex education. We're talking with Jerry Cox. He is president of the Family Council. Now, you guys have got go folks. I want you to go to familycouncil.org and check out some of these great Arkansas stories about what's going on. There's another one about the Attorney General Leslie Rutledge fighting for human life. What can you tell us about that one, sir?
Well, I tell you what, as far as these laws are concerned and as far as we're concerned on the pro-life side, Leslie Rutledge is our hero. Our Attorney General right now is defending a total of 8 pro-life laws in federal court. And there are 3 that, in particular, that were passed just this year, where one is it requires abortion doctors to be an obstetrician gynecologist. You can't have a dermatologist or a podiatrist out here doing abortions. We said, if you're going to do an abortion, you need to be an OBGYN. Well, guess what? Planned Parenthood and all those guys, their type, went out here and challenged it in federal court. And guess what? Judge Christine Baker here at the lower court struck it down. And then they challenged Senator Trent Garner's bill that prevents abortions solely because a child has Down syndrome and, going to be handicapped. And so we said can't do an abortion just because of that. Well, guess what? They challenged it, and Christine Baker struck it down. And then you have a really good bill that rolls back the gestational age at which a woman can receive an abortion. We with Robin Lundstrom, state representative, rolled it back to 18 weeks. It's 20 right now. We rolled it back 2 weeks. And guess what? They challenged it. And so all of these were struck down by Christine Baker back last summer, and now Leslie Rutledge has added those 3 good laws to the list of a total of 8 laws that are currently before the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal. That's the next higher court. And in the past, the Eighth Circuit has reversed Judge Baker, and I believe they'll do the same with some of these laws. And as soon as they do, and as soon as these laws go into effect, then you're going to see the number of abortions go down. And it's not just about preventing a woman from going out here and having an abortion per se. It's about preventing the abortion industry from preying on that woman who is scared, feels like she has nowhere to turn, doesn't know what to do, and they take advantage of her, and she makes a decision that maybe she'll regret for the rest of her days. And there are better ways. There are pregnancy centers out here who will help a woman every step of the way, and they do it every single day. And what we want to do is see those women make the better choice of either keeping their baby or putting their baby up for adoption. That's the best thing to do. So these laws shepherd women in that direction.
Absolutely, and the AG is doing a great job in representing the will of the people and defending those laws. Now, speaking of preying on women, P-R-E-Y, what about praying for women, P-R-A-Y? This headline, familycouncil.org, baby saved from abortion in Little Rock. What can you tell us about that, Jerry?
Well, there's an effort called 40 Days for Life, where people go out and they stand in front of the abortion facilities around the country. It's a national movement, and they pray. They don't holler at the women or jump in front of cars or protest with big signs and all that stuff or do anything that would be crazy or embarrassing. They just go out there and pray. Well, studies have shown that if there are people standing out in front of the clinic praying, that about 3/4 of the women who go there to get an abortion will decide not to go through with it. And there are all kinds of reasons for that. But once in a while, some of the women will actually come over and talk to the people that are praying. They'll seek them out. And just the other day, this happened out here at the clinic in Little Rock, the abortion facility here, where a woman came over and talked to the people that were out there praying, and she decided that she would not abort her baby. And these stories are from all over the country, not just Little Rock. And in fact, it's estimated that the 40 Days for Life movement has probably saved around 16,000 unborn children since it was started back, 10, 12 years ago. And so it's a really good thing for people to do, because if you really believe that inside that building there that they are taking the lives of unborn children, then it's not too much for a person to stand out there and pray that will not happen.
Yeah.
And it's made a difference. And so we've actually seen situations where people that work in the clinic would be convicted of what they're doing, and they would just say, I'm not doing this anymore, and they would just get up and quit.
Yeah.
And so it's creating a culture of life, which is good for everybody.
Can I ask you one more question on another story that's up at familycouncil.org? And the reason I ask this is because I saw I saw a report on the U.S. Senate confirming Arkansas's Lee Rudovsky over at the Arkansas Times. And if they got a problem with it, I gotta imagine it's a pretty good thing for the state and the country. So what can you tell us about Lee?
Well, let me tell you, Lee. Okay, Lee went to Cornell, and then he graduated law school at Harvard. I'm sure he is not qualified to be a judge. I mean, that's ridiculous. But they act like that somehow he's this bumpkin out here that's terrible. And the man is brilliant. I mean, in my opinion, he could go higher than just being a judge here in the Eastern District of Arkansas. And Lee is a great guy. He was on staff at the Attorney General's office here and worked vigorously to, I might add, successfully defend some of the pro-life laws that Christine Baker struck down. And it's not that he's going to go out here and be a biased person, but Paul, I find that if they'll just interpret the law properly as it was written, then these good laws will stand. What we're dealing with are judges that lean it the other way, and they just say, oh, it restricts abortion. Well, I'm going to strike that down. I don't even need to read that. That's pretty much seems to be the attitude. Mm-hmm. And Lee looks at these things and say, you know what? Whether I agree with the law or not, personally, here's what the law is. This is how the Constitution says we do this. And I think he's a very straight shooter. But see, that's not what most liberals want. They don't want a straight shooter, a constitutionalist. They want somebody that will legislate from the bench the way they've done with Roe v. Wade and these other bad rulings. And I figure they're pretty sure that Lee won't do that. So that's what's got them upset.
The website, folks, familycouncil.org. We've had this great interview, Jerry. I appreciate it. Really comprehensive about what you guys got going on. And can't wait to do it again sometime.
Hey, we'll look forward to it, and you guys have a great day.
You too, Jerry. God bless. You see the website right there, folks, familycouncil.org. Those stories we talked about and more up there right now. Check them out.